Hello and welcome to another episode of Grange TV. We have with us a living legend of Australian sport, Mr. Johnny Lewis. Welcome and thank you very much.
I'm honoured to be here and thank you, Fab.
Thank you, Eli, as well, as always doing a great job with all the stuff that we don't know about, with the sounds and the cameras and that, so that's awesome. You were introduced to me through a mutual friend, Brian Doyle. Brian tells me that you were instrumental to him as a youth. How responsible are you for Brian's lies in that now, as he tells all the stories that he tells?
Well, first and foremost, I knew Brian's elder brother Chris because he was a very good footballer for the Newtown club. Meeting his younger brother Brian, to this day I treasure the moment that Brian walked into the gym, and there was something very special about him. I'm very proud where he's gone in his life, and I'd like to think that the discipline that he was able to grab hold of in his boxing career played a big part in where he went in his commercial side of things, and he's got a very good business today, and I'm very, very proud of what he's achieved.
Now, Brian Doyle is someone that, I mean, the three of us know, but I mean, that story must be played out over and over and over in your life and career as a coach. Can you explain to us a little bit about where this happened, how it happened, how you came about to be coaching?
As a young fella, we had a few boxing coaches at Newtown Police Boys Club. We used to love to go away to the country areas, and we'd go in a VW Combi van, and it was a great thing for just the kids of Erskineville. It was a weekend away, and we all loved the trip away as much as the fight.
You were competing then?
Yeah, I was about 13 when we started there, and you know, as the years went by, we had a trainer called Dick O'Connor, and I'd almost turning 17, and we had built together a very good team, and Dick was very proud of us all, and he said to me he wanted me to keep my eye on the things because he was going to be missing for about 5 weeks, and he didn't want to lose anybody, so keep your eye on things and keep them all working, and I'll see you in 5 weeks. But unfortunately I never saw Dick O'Connor again. And
what happened? What happened to him? Did he? Yeah,
look, I don't know what happened, but he was virtually lost to the fight game. But he did work for Waverley Council, I think, and one day I was able to talk to him on the phone, but that was the only time I ever spoke to him. What would I say? Always hoped that we'd see him come through the door again, but unfortunately, I don't know what reason or whatever that he never came back. But his legacy stayed with me, and I always regarded him as something very, very special. He was like a Wayne Bennett type of bloke, and okay. He just had a very soft-spoken guy, and he got the message across very simply. And I suppose that, well, when I was left to mind the kids, I was trying to be Dick O'Connor, and if you fast forward life through, I do owe Dick O'Connor very much. I had two other coaches, Jack Blom and Snowy McFadgen. They were both from the Newtown Erskineville area, and you know, you can learn off different people at any stage. I look back, and I remember Roy Carroll, who I think he was the first Aboriginal promoter of boxing, and he used to promote out of Marrickville RSL Club, and learned a lot from Dick and Roy, Mickey Fernandez, a guy called Trevor Christian, who was I think Trevor hails from Cowra, and you know, it just sort of like was a melting pot, and I took a little bit out of each of what I can remember from those guys, and suddenly there we were taking the kids to fights ourselves. And
you were how old at this stage?
I would have been like 17, and we went right through that calendar year. And I remember the sergeant downstairs, he came up and said he'd been notified that the Newtown Club hadn't been to one boxing tournament throughout the year, and we were all waiting for someone to come in and train us. And anyhow, he said, we've got to go to this one at Parramatta. And he said, we've got to put down the fighters. And I said, oh, good, who's going to be in our corner? He said, you and me. And I said, I can't go in the corner, but we did it, and we had a bit of success that night. And virtually, I couldn't wait for the Christmas period to finish to get back into the gym in January and go hands on it and full steam ahead.
So you just started as a 17-year-old. What did you do during the day? Like, did you have a day job?
Yeah, I was an apprentice signwriter. I left school at 14 and got into the trade as soon as I could. So yeah, we'd finish at 4 o'clock, and we'd all meet up the club by 4:30, and away we'd go.
How long did you work as a signwriter?
I was at the one place for 32 years, yeah.
Okay. So from those beginnings in Newtown and Erskineville, and then Newtown Schoolboys and the Newtown Police Boys Club, and then starting to coach at 17 years old, how did that go from such humble beginnings, but extremely rewarding beginnings, I'd imagine, to, I don't know, the bright lights? Because if I'm to remember correctly, you were with Fenech, with Tszyu, with Harding as well, and quite a few others like that. But 3 big names there, and please, any others? Yeah, look,
you go back with it all, and I finished up. I felt that we had a few state and Australian amateur champions that came out of there, but I knew that I wanted to learn a lot more, so I finished up. I went into some professional gyms around the areas, and I did leave the Police Boys, and I think that it just did a lot of corner work, and learned about the cut eyes and how to bandage hands, and how to treat black eyes and so forth. And it was a different experience, the professional side of boxing to the amateur side, and I just kept my eyes and ears open, and I think about in the late 70s I went back to Newtown Police Boys Club, and we stayed there right through for most of our success.
So when you were coaching like Fenech, and that was that out of Newtown?
Yes.
Because he's originally from Marrickville, which is reasonably close.
Just a stone's throw down the road. So
did you start with him when he was a kid?
Yeah, he was 17 when he first started. We had an amateur career where he went on to win the Australian title, and became captain of the 1984 boxing team to the Olympics. And
he started with you? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we went to an amateur career together, and then when Jeff came back, he wanted to turn professional, and he wanted to be champion of the world. And a lot of hard work and a lot of, the way he went about it was unbelievable. Like he just he knew what he wanted, and he knew what it took to get there, and made a lot of sacrifices, and finished up winning 3 world championships in different divisions, and unfortunately robbed of a 4th one. It was.
Were you there for the Zuma Nelson fight?
Yes.
What was that like? What was the crowd like? What was the decision like? I mean, I know what the decision was, but...
Well, the crowd was great, and I think that, they were certainly on Jeff's side. They thought he was much the better fighter on the day, and like myself, couldn't believe the decision that was given, a draw. But it was a sad day. But then again, what can you do? He'd done a marvellous job against an all-time great in Zuma Nelson. It was just virtually one bloke gave it against us, and the other one made it a draw. But it was so you can say everyone in the place except 2 people thought he won the fight.
Yes. What were some of the sacrifices that were instrumental to Jeff's career?
Oh, well, you've got to, it's early up, early to bed, watching your weight all the time. And I've got to say, to this day, I've never seen anybody work as hard in the gymnasium as what he did. In an hour, he did more than what someone else would do in 2.5 hours. He was brilliant. He had an amazing desire, and it was backed up with great levels of discipline, and success came, as I say, not easily, but he was gifted, he was strong, but he gave it so much more chances by the sacrifices that he did do.
What all the stuff that you said now, notwithstanding, but what did anything set him apart when he walked in the doors of your gym? Did you look at him and go, this kid's got something a little bit special, or or same? Or
there was something about him from after the first time he did a little bit of training. I've got to say that I couldn't say that I felt that he's going to be a world champion. I thought this kid could be something special. I did get that feeling, and he, with each and every amateur fight that we had together, we never ever lost one, and I just believed that he could beat anybody. And it was a great journey from, I think, 1981, at the end of 81. And from 82, 83 and 84, he was just amazing how he improved. If you look at that, he was awarded the decision, and then there was a jury that was 100 yards away, changed the decision around. I don't know why they did that, but anyhow, it certainly cost him a gold medal, because not long after that, we fought Steve McCrory as a professional, and Jeff stopped him in that contest to retain his title. So that is the sad thing about his amateur career. I do believe that he could have been our first and only Olympic gold medalist.
He's and now, do you work a lot with him? Do you still work with him, or?
No, not at all. Jeff's training a few fighters, and he has done throughout his career, and met with a lot of success there. And but I've sort of been out of it. But I do a little bit of work with a kid called Bilal Akaway, which I love doing with him. He's a very good boy. He comes from at the Carlton Hardcore Gymnasium, and it's good for me to do that, because it's a great interest, and they're a good team of people up there.
Okay, so is the boy the only person you work with at the moment, or do you work with any others?
No, he's he's the only one at the moment. Although last week I went and Adam Watt, who is now a trainer himself, he's got a young kid called Ben Sava, and Adam asked me to go up and do some pad work with him, which I did last week. I'd like to have another go at it. I sort of like the fire in my stomach was burning a little bit when I watched Jeff Horn just recently.
Oh yeah,
it was a great day for not only Australian boxing but for Australia. It just showed you that what he did that day was remarkable, and I think we all felt the urge to maybe have one more go of throw of the dice.
Can you speak a little bit on that? Because I think that sentiment that you speak of is very clear when people speak of athletes. So when somebody describes an athlete having the fire in their belly still, that's still pretty clear. But as a coach, can you describe what it's like that emotional roller coaster, those peaks and troughs of a coach's career?
Yeah, I think what you got to look for is, if you can't do your best, well, there's a time when you're not only the sports people but the coaches and maybe referees and judges. We've all got our time in what we do. You got to be honest that you get a bit older and you worry if you can still do the job and everything. But as I say, I've enjoyed the work that I've done with young Bilal, and I'm quite happy to like his dad, who's his trainer, was a young boy that I trained, and I honestly believe that we had a great chance of becoming something very, very special in world boxing. And unfortunately for Michael, he suffered the day before he was to go for the national titles to go to the Olympics. I think they were Seoul. They had a car accident, and he was badly injured with his shoulder, and it put him out of the game for 12 months, and he missed the Olympic selection, of course. And anyhow, rather than wait another 4 years for the next Olympics, he decided to turn pro. He remained unbeaten in the pro, but every time we fought, he dislocated the shoulder, and he'd had it operated on. It wasn't a success. So we always said that if Michael had a kid that wanted to fight, I'd be in the corner with him. So that's where we're at, and it's. I'm very proud to be doing that too, and as I say, it's all.
What's that like? What's that like seeing? Because I'm just going to throw it out there and just guess that wouldn't be the only father and son duo that you've ever coached.
No, there's been a few that have come up, but
what's that like?
It's it just makes you feel, or not feel, but realise how quick time's gone, and the old father time, it doesn't wait for anybody. It just suddenly you're not 50 anymore, and you're suddenly 70, and you can I still do this? And that's a big question. But as I said, I'm quietly confident that we could do one more throw of the dice.
You want you with Bill in particular?
I'm enjoying that, and I like working with him. And Michael does get me to work quite a bit with him, and it's a good little involvement. And he asked a few questions. Bilal, he really wants to make it, and he's a young Muslim kid, and I'm very, very proud to be working with him. He's a very special young boy.
All right, so I guess not everyone that listens to the podcast come from a fight and sport background, but I think it's evident in what we've been discussing that you are a mentor, a leader, a coach. I don't think even just limited to boxing or sport. I think like kind of transcends what you do. But so I guess one of the questions that I want to ask is like, how would you define a leader? How do you define the term leader?
Well, it's as a coach, whether it's football, swimming, golf, or whatever. I think that people say, "Oh, he's a good coach," or "He's not," or "He's very good," or whatever. I think in my case, as long as the fighter that you got you're walking down to the ring, as long as he thinks you're the best, that's the main objective. He knows that if it gets hard, that you'll be looking after him. He knows that you've got him as fit as he could be, and as and with the discipline that we spoke about earlier, that he's up for it. We've matched him accordingly, and I think that defines like the leadership that they're looking for. And it's not much good the fighter being in the gym 7 days a week if I'm going to be there too. I've got to show him that I want to be there as much as him. I've got to be there every day. I think it's very important that if you train at 4 o'clock, that everyone's there at 4 o'clock. Once again, the discipline of that. Your car might break down or whatever, but it's little things that all get together to make the bonding between the fighter and the trainer is very, very important. Getting into that ring, going down there, and when the referees gave the instructions and they come back, and you just say something that you think's the right thing to say, and you get them and you look at their eyes, and you feel that we're a big chance here tonight. That's what it's about.
So, what are the qualities you look for in an athlete, in a young athlete, when you're working with them?
I think it's always the want has got to be greater than the need. They've got to want it. It's no more than boxing is that hunger apparent. You really got to be hungry for success. And I think the hungrier you are, the better you go, and that's been proven it's not everybody can be a heart surgeon, a scientist, a rocket scientist, or whatever. But through the sport of boxing, if you get to the top, you can give yourself a pretty good lifestyle in the later years. Same with football and everything else, or where golf or whatever. It can be rewarding, and but if you're half-hearted, success won't come. No way at all.
What was how did you end up working with Tszyu?
I think 1989 I went over with the Australian amateur boxing team to Moscow for the World Amateur Championships, and I remember seeing Kostya. This particular night he got beat by an East German, and I remember coming back home, and there's just something about him, and I remember...
you saw that in the loss?
Yes, he got beat by the East German
What
kid.
made you look at Kostya in the loss? Because it's funny, we've spoken about other things in the podcast. What made you look at Kostya in the loss as opposed to you looking at the East German kid and going, the East German kid just beat that Russian kid?
Yeah, I think the East German kid was, his technique was very European, as Kostya's was too, but I thought that Kostya was chiselled to a different... the East German was a tall, rangy kid that won the fight by his jab. Kostya looked like he had more power. I think, like when I did look at Kostya, I thought professional, not amateur, and I thought that over 12 rounds he could adjust to the waiting and to land his big guns. I think it was, I came back and I spoke to Bill Morty about this Russian kid, and then there was a tournament, I think it was the King's Cup in Thailand, and I remember that the Kostya was in the Russian side, and he fought the East German and won on...
Again, same East German kid?
Yeah, and he beat him well, and I mentioned that to Kostya, and I was speaking to the Russian doctor who could speak English, and I said, would that boy be interested in turning professional? And he said, "I most definitely."
Sorry, what year was this?
That would have been 1990 now we're going.
So that was still Soviet Union?
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyhow...
so they weren't turning pro yet?
No.
Yeah.
Anyhow, what happened was I was talking to the doctor, and he said it'd be good to come to the Goodwill Games, they called it. It was going to be, I forget what state in America, but he said, why don't you come over and bring the promoter with you and have a look, and we can have a talk. And anyhow, I said, yeah, we'll do that. Anyhow, Bill, it was going to be in Seattle, and Bill was quite excited to come. Anyhow, all of a sudden it was a footy season, and Bill was working with Big League magazine. He said, look, you go, I'll let me know what you think. And anyhow, I said, oh mate, I'm not going. So it was put on hold, and then I think it was in the following January, I think it was, all of a sudden the World Amateur titles were held at Homebush. And I said to Bill, come and we'll go up and watch this kid, which we did. And it's well documented then that Kostya was absolutely superb in his fights there, and he's the guy that he beat in the final. He turned professional, and he beat Shane Mosley twice, and I just can't think of his name at the moment. But anyhow, he got shot. He got
Forrest.
Vernon
Forrest. Yeah.
And unfortunately, Vernon was murdered. We were over there, and he come and seen us, and we had a meal with him, and I don't know how, maybe at the end of the year he was murdered with a gunshot. But anyhow, we took Kostya for a meal, and he liked where we were, what we were about and everything. Anyhow, he agreed to come back and turn professional, and but he went home, and he came back.
How old was Kostya at this stage?
He would have been about 20, I think, 19, 20. But, you know, he came back, and it was just an amazing transformation from the amateur ranks to the pro ranks with him. But
hard transition for him?
Not really. He was Kostya had the ability to. He had great power, but he had the ability to win the fight between the ears. You know, he could turn it into a game of chess. He was brilliant in that area. You know, and I remember one time we were having a hard fight with a very tall kid from I think he might have been Argentinian. Once again, I can't remember the name, but he put 2 counts on Kostya, and it was getting late in the fight, and I remember Kostya coming back and he said, don't worry, I will take him out this round, I have him now. But he didn't take him out that round, but he took him out the next one. His calculations were a little bit wrong, but he'd put him where he wanted him, and then he just applied the pressure and broke him up.
Kostya's background, am I correct? Did he do a lot of gymnastics type training? How did that come about?
Yeah, when we were down the AIS, he was always looking for something to give him an edge, and I think that we were down there, and there was one of the young guys that was doing the gymnastics down there. I think he finished up in one of those circuses that came out, you know.
Cirque du Soleil type
yeah,
thing.
something, one of those. And anyhow, he had a few little exercises he was doing for balance, and Kostya really grabbed that. You know, balance is such an important asset that you can take in with you in any sport. Balance is paramount, and anyhow, he was doing a bit of that, and they were doing a bit of rope climbing and just different things from the. He's still done his boxing work, but he put an hour away to go to the gymnastic room and do a few little things there.
Did you have much to do with Vic Darchinyan as well?
I did have a little bit to do with Vic, yeah.
Because he's Armenian.
Yes, right.
Background. And he would have, and Armenia at the time when he was coming up would have been part of the Soviet Union as well.
I think they were. Yeah.
Yeah. So did they come from a similar school of boxing?
Look, I think a bit different, but at the same time, very much the same sort of techniques and whatever. Vic was an amazing, strong puncher. I've never seen a little fellow that could punch like Vic. He was a marvellous puncher too, as was Kostya.
I read somewhere, now correct me if I'm wrong, this I might not have even read, I might just be making it up, I don't even know anymore. But when they came over, they didn't do a lot of road work, and was it you that put the road work thing in with them, and how did they take it? If that's
Kostya, when he first came over, he wasn't one for running, and he didn't like it too much. But as time went on, he finished up. He was very strong in the running area too. He was a good runner, and he. What would you say? He'd do at least 40 minutes with his running, and it is an important part of your training regime. It's nice to get up early in the morning and the air's clear, and he didn't like it at first, but he soon realised that you had to do that.
What and Vic Darchinyan the same?
I'm not sure about that with Vic. Yeah, I went in Vic's corner a couple of times, and I just marvelled at his power, but I don't know if Vic ran or not. I should imagine he did.
I'm almost sure that I read an interview somewhere about him. I don't know if you said it to him or he heard you say it, but he said that it was something to do with you, and that's why he started doing more road running. I might be paraphrasing, I could be wrong. It might have been Kostya that I read that about, but I remember. So what did Kostya do instead of running? What did he do for?
Stayed in bed a little bit longer, I suppose. But you got to look at it. I think Kostya had an amazing amateur career. I think it was 280 something fights, and only lost a handful of those, and undoubtedly would have reversed the decision on some of them. He did come into the pro ranks with a lot of artillery and so forth, but I always thought that everybody did road work, like every boxer, whether they were amateur or pro. We always did, and but look, he was as I said earlier, he was always looking for an edge, and to get up, run in the morning, it is a very, very important part of it all, and he soon learnt that, and no problems with it at all.
What was it like to coach Kostya? Like, how did he take to the coaching? How did your relationship?
Well, yeah, originally, like, he couldn't speak English, and I still can't speak Russian, so he had to learn the English side of things. But we did have an interpreter for the first fight. But look, it wasn't too bad at all, considering, you know. But he. A couple of times there was might have been a little bit difficult, but in the end it was a pretty good association. Yeah.
What's the transition like, coaching, like as an Australian, culturally and whatnot, coaching the Eastern Europeans or any other nationality for that matter, but big, like, because like you said, someone coming in with 300 amateur fights through the Eastern Bloc system, and at the time that being such a strong system, Soviet Union was such a strong system, they still, like Russia and that still are. So when you're coming into Australia and having that, what's that like, those cultural differences that you might have in training and culture in day-to-day life?
Yeah, look, the one thing you got to remember in boxing is that everyone is an individual. What works for one's not going to work for another, different styles. I suppose I was with Kostya, I knew that he was more than capable, and as I say, he could think his fights and so forth. It was just a matter of getting a good fitness level, and but you know, like, there were times when we felt that, you know, we might have even had to go back to his amateur style, where he jabbed a little bit more than just trying to sit on someone with a big shot, to try and create those openings rather than wait for them. But yeah, it wasn't too bad at all, like, you know, for two different languages to try and get the message across, or whatever. I do remember it was a funny thing in our first fight. I told the interpreter to make sure that Kostya won the first round. I want him to win the first round so that his opponent would try and steal a little bit and let him feel the power or whatever, and know that he was in for a hard night.
Who was this with? Who did he fight?
Kostya and Darryl Hiles, his first pro fight. Anyhow, he went out and he knocked him out in the first round, and
well, he did it. He listened to it.
And then he spoke to the interpreter, and the interpreter said he wants to know why he had to win in the first round. And I said, no, I said he had to win the first round. But that was good. Yeah. But yeah, that was, as I say, he went really, like, he was letting them go, like, and but it was a good debut, because people suddenly thought, gee, here's this kid, you know, he is going to be something, and a lot of people were able to follow his career right through from that day on, and word of mouth was about this old Russian with a pigtail. He captured the imagination of, I think everyone knew then that world titles were going to be on offer for him.
Okay. If you have any questions, Eli, just jump in. If you have any questions about boxing. Eli boxed a fair bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember being a young kid, and if you went into a boxing gym, you always seen Kostya Tszyu. He was sort of, even though he come from Russia or the Soviet Union, he was very much a Australian icon and that. And I remember these boxing gyms would always have these posters up of exercises that he did. Do you know what I mean? Off the side of the ring and stuff like that, back exercises. And then I think I seen one time where he would do a certain amount of rolls to get himself dizzy, and then jump up and hit the bag or pads or something like that to simulate. Simulate if he's being hit and wounded a bit, and then do. So I just remember all them things, and they were just, yeah, they were really crazy. Was he always doing
as I say, he was always looking for an edge, and he did that. He used to do a lot of tumbles and get up and shadow spar, and in a disorientated style, like, you know, he was all over the place, but he got through it. And you might remember the one we used to put the ball on his head and punch the ball, like, and it was marvellous how he done that.
Yeah, well, that's coming back in now. Everyone's now getting around with their little ball down the park.
Eye-hand coordination, it's paramount again in our sport. But he and I do remember he used to do a push-up, and then he'd clap his hands in front of him and behind his back, and then do another. It was marvellous, a lot of the things he could do. Yeah. Very eerie at sometimes, you know.
Were you there? Were you with him during that run when he unified the belts against Zab Judah, Shambe Mitchell, and I don't know who the other guy was? Do you remember, Eli? There was Shambe Mitchell. He beat him.
His first one was IBF against Rodriguez.
Okay.
IBF, and then Shambe Mitchell, and then Zab Judah. Yeah.
Were you there for all three?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
What was that like? Let's start with Rodriguez. What was that fight like? Yeah, and what was the preparation of that fight like?
Yeah, Jake Rodriguez. It was a fight that. We saw him win the world title. We were very confident.
Were you there when Rodriguez won?
No, but we did see film of it. And when we went over there, we were reasonably confident.
What was the things you saw in Rodriguez that you thought married up well with Tszyu?
I thought we could hurt him. And that's what Kostya did. He really, after a couple of rounds, his punches started to leave their mark on him. And
what was the thing that you saw that said we can hurt him?
Well, any punch that Kostya threw was usually, had plenty on it. But I think the shots to the body, get his hands down, and then just bring the big ones over the top, and that's what he did. And they finished up. They just stopped that fight more than him being counted out.
Did you think was there idiosyncrasies in Rodriguez's game though that left him susceptible to Kostya's power punching? Like, was there something that he was doing that you could see?
Oh, I just felt that we wouldn't have too much trouble hitting him. You know, I thought that very hittable.
He was there to be hit, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be hit by Kostya. I don't imagine.
Yeah, well, I don't think, with all the experience that Jay had, that he would have fought anyone that could punch like Kostya. He could, like, for junior welterweight, he had a massive power shot.
And in the Shambe Mitchell fight, I remember reading something about Kostya saying that the biggest thing that he wanted Shambe Mitchell to do was stop moving, and that he was more concerned about making him stop moving than anything first and foremost. Can you shed some light, if anything?
Yeah, well, Shambe was very clever on his feet, and he was quite a good fighter. Undoubtedly a test for us. He was speedy, but once again his punches just slowed him down, and I think that he was glad to get out of there.
They tussled a bit, They clinched a bit in that.
Yeah, but you know, there was it once again, even on the inside with that Kostya, very strong, very the upper body very strong, and he I think it just all helped break the mental toughness of Shambe. He broke him up.
Did Shambe hurt his knee in that fight? Am I correct? Is that the right fight?
He did. He retired with a knee, but as I say, I think that he'd had enough. And
did you, going into that fight, what were the idiosyncrasies you saw going into the Shambe Mitchell Kostya Tszyu fight, where you could see as a coach, you know, how they're going to marry up, that made you feel confident?
Yeah, as I say, I thought it was once again the power of Kostya would have Shambe doubting his they fought twice, and he spoke about how Shambe was African for warrior, and he'd instructed his corner on no account were they to stop the fight. He wanted to die in the ring if he wasn't good enough, and you just said it, he went out with a crook knee. Well, I just think the mental toughness was taken away from him by Kostya in his face, not giving him any chance of getting a breather. His presence was so much so that he was melting. You know, we were very confident with that fight as well.
How good was Kostya at controlling the ring?
Oh, very good. As I say, he was. Once Kostya controlled and dictated the terms, it was just a matter of when, and he could do that.
How did he handle the pressure? Like because where was the Shambe Mitchell fight? Was it in Vegas?
Yeah, both. I think Vegas. Yeah.
And was the crowd on? Was it a very partisan crowd going for Mitchell, or was Tszyu very popular there too?
I think Kostya was building up a little bit of a fan base over there, and they love their boxing, the Yanks, and anyhow, like as I say, there was always plenty of support for Kostya, and there was always a few Russian people that came over to support him as well.
How did he handle the pressure of the big fights?
Oh, I loved it. You know, he was remarkable in the dressing room. He just lay down and he'd read a book, and
like just a book about something completely different.
I don't know what he was reading, but he was reading, and just let him go with that. You know,
yeah.
And he'd get up, and then we'd do a little bit of pads, but he never overexerted, and he always, I suppose we don't want to show like that we're nervous to him, and he was always, I felt, very, very confident of success.
You were there for Zab Judah.
That's right, yeah.
Zab Judah, because I remember this now. I remember really, really clearly Zab Judah fight, because that was the last one of that trio of fights. Am I correct? With
yes.
Yeah. And I think I was a little bit older. I might have been 18 or 19 when that happened. And I remember that everyone was saying that no way Kostya Tszyu, I don't know in boxing circles, but I'm just talking about like people in general, saying that there's no way that Tszyu was going to beat Zab Judah. No way. Zab Judah was too fast, to hit too hard, too unorthodox with his striking, the way that he did things. And I remember that the odds were like 3 or 4 to 1 against Kostya. Obviously, Kostya didn't read any of that stuff, because that's not how the fight went. Did he feel any of that pressure? Did you feel any of that pressure? And what was that like?
No, I remember that one. I just said to the Kostya, we're going to take him to somewhere where he's never been before, and I don't think that he'll like it where he's going to go.
What was that? What was the plan?
Well, I honestly felt that once again he wouldn't have felt anyone with the power that Kostya had. Kostya would get his legs tied. It was just a matter of when we could do it. I always thought that we'd get him early. This thing that I look for is that long neck, and he had a long neck, which usually you don't take a good shot when you got that long, thin, slender neck. The first round, no doubt, Zab won it, but Kostya sort of, just near the end, he hit him with a little bit of a body shot. Didn't put a lot on it, but it sort of, seeing that, and I thought, we'll be right. And I didn't expect to win it that quick. I did think we could win it early, but I suppose realistically, in hindsight, once Kostya got him, I would have thought that, you know, we'll take him out. And it came in the second round so early, and it was a right hand, and then he hit him with another one, and he was completely, his legs had gone. He couldn't get any balance back at all, and I do believe that it was one of the best bit of refereeing I've ever seen, because he holded that fight straight away.
Well, he should have stayed down, for a little bit longer. If
he didn't know where he was.
Yeah, he didn't have any idea.
He thought the referee hit him. He was going crook on the referee, like, you know.
I remember, because I remember the whole commotion that happened. You remember that, Eli? With Zab Judah and
vaguely, I was young and not.
Oh yeah, you're younger than me. Yeah. It was Zab Judah when the ref. You tell the story. You were there.
Yeah, well, he just sort of was pointing to the referee like we don't know what he was saying, but at the same time he'd lost his legs. Very similar to, I think it was might have been Trevor Burbick and Tyson. Remember and Tyson hit him, and he just couldn't get his. He tried to get up and he'd fall down, and Zab was the same. He was gone, and I can tell you that had he allowed him to go out, he could have seriously hurt him, and that's the one thing that we don't want to see or be part of. But it was, you know, when you get these things and you say, I'm going to have a hard fight, but with Kostya, you could always get them and size them up, and then you'd say, well, it's pretty close, but then the power comes into it, like, you know, and Kostya just had so much punching power.
Going back to that fight with Zab Judah, because after he cracked him and he couldn't get up, like Johnny was saying, but then he got his faculties back. And then there was a massive commotion where he grabbed the ref by the throat. Zab Judah did.
He threw a chair too.
Oh, did he throw a chair?
Yeah.
At who?
Oh, I don't know. He didn't. I don't think he knew what he was doing. But anyhow, he was.
Did that carry on afterwards?
No. The not too much goes that way in Vegas. They get in there pretty quick and stop any of that.
Did how much factor? Like, I mean, it's obviously you have to be able to apply it, but how much of a factor is punching power in for boxing? Like, obviously it was for Tszyu, but how much of a factor for a young person or an athlete is it? What you look for, etc.
Yeah, well, you usually when you're doing the pads, you can say, gee, that kid's got a whack on him or whatever, and you can sort of feel it. It's if we can go back to young Bilal, I felt there was a couple of fights there, and Bilal's a very big puncher too, extremely big puncher, and he was fighting, and he was under the mindset that he had to knock everybody out, which he doesn't have to do. And his last fight, we trained to do the distance, and if the knockout comes, it comes. And that was the big thing that I liked about him, was that he didn't, like, he'll always punch hard.
Who's this?
Young Bilal Akaway. Yeah. But he got off on the jab, and he jabbed brilliantly throughout the whole contest, where he could set up his other punches. They all work off the jab. And it was, I think, his best performance to date against the best fighter he's fought, because he wasn't looking for that KO. Well, you know, Kostya was the same. As I said, he knew when he could unleash with the power, even though he could stop you the first round, the second round, whatever, but he could still stop you in the last round. Such was when he got you in the position where he was going to hit you. And I think that that's what Bilal learnt the other night. And Kostya was the same. He was we fought one fella one time, and Kostya just boxed him like an amateur and just got off his jab and won the fight. 12 rounds, every round he won, and it was a good thing to do for the future. Like, you know, if you start knocking everybody out, you're not going to get that. You haven't done the distance, and you can be found short. Very much like when George Foreman fought Muhammad Ali, he was knocking everyone out early, or when Muhammad took him into a zone where he hadn't been, he just couldn't handle it. He was, you know, he just folded because he survived his big shots and then broke him up mentally and finished him off. It was more exhaustion than anything else.
What are some of the other fighters that you've worked with that you've kept, I don't know, for want of a better term, that you know that you have fond memories of?
Yeah, I've loved everybody that I've trained and been in the corner with, but I got a little kid from Guyana, Gary Sinclair, who came over as a sparring partner for Kostya. We won a world title in South Africa, and it was one of the great performances. Like, he was up against a very good fighter. Gary had just come back from his mother passed away in Guyana, and he'd been to the funeral. He came back, his partner had miscarried. We only got short notice of the fight. We didn't have the greatest preparation, but it was a chance for the world title, and Gary had been around for a long time. We flew to South Africa, and we got engine problem with the plane, and it had to turn back, and we spent almost 2 days in Western Australia. And by the time we got there, we were a little bit flat, and Gary just worked so hard, even though, and when you go to South Africa, it's very hard with the altitude and so forth. And come fight night, Gary fought 12 hectic rounds, and we really wanted the last round to make a bird of it. And Gary was a beautiful boxer, and he just went out there and backed himself, and he just threw 1,000 punches and just kept his opponent off balance, and a wonderful performance. I'll always remember that. He was good sparring for Kostya. That's what he was out here for. And but the truth of the matter was that he was a champion in his own right. He was more than a sparring partner. I had a kid from Casino, New South Wales, Justin Rousell.
Yep.
Beautiful boxer, and I marvel at Justin, some of the things he could do, particularly his evasive skill. You know, he was wonderful. But they all had something, you know. They all had, some were tough, some were strong, some were powerful. Everyone's got an asset that takes them from being good to great. But with it all is that every one of those guys I mentioned were great trainers. They really put in.
What was you did a lot of work with football teams. How did that come about? What kind of work do you do with them?
Yeah, I was a ardent Newtown supporter, and I was able to work with a few of the Newtown players. And over the years, I've worked with the Roosters, done a bit of work with Canterbury and Cronulla. And
doing what exactly?
Just mainly the pads and a little bit of weights, hand weights, and some core work. It was a great thrill for me to, from 1989 to 94, be associated with the Australian Rugby League team, and with Bob Fulton, the coach. That was all, you know, something that I treasured and really enjoyed every moment of that as well.
Okay. You received an award Order of Australia. It's a medal.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, Order of Australia medal. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that came about to be?
How it came about was that we read it in the paper, and
so you didn't know you received it?
No, it was someone rang us, and we bought the paper, and there it was. And look, it was it was great, and I've got to say that everyone that I ever trained shared in that. Without them I wouldn't have got it, and it was a great thing. In them days, Newtown Police Boys Club, from a very, you had to be 8 before you could go in there, but they let us in there when we were 6-year-old, and it was a very big part of my life was the Police Boys Club at Newtown.
And you were telling me earlier when we were talking, you were originally from, your family was from Queensland?
No, Mum and Dad were, Mum was from Erskineville, Dad was from Redfern, but he got called up into the Army, Second World War, and he was stationed at Wallangarra.
Okay.
And I had an elder brother that was up there, and when Mum was pregnant with me, and my grandmother told Mum she had to have me down over here, and Mum come down, had me in Sydney, and then we went back up there. And I suppose about the first 18 months of my life were up at Wallangarra, and then straight back to where Mum came from, Erskineville. So realistically, yeah, very much an Erskineville, Newtown person.
Yeah, and you live there still now, in Marrickville?
And more Marrickville, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, still there.
So you've always been in and around that area, and you've seen massive changes in that area too, I'd imagine. People
have changed, places have changed, they're very different. The hotels are, I used to sell papers, and I saw some great fights in them hotels and around the back, and you don't see them today. It's very, very different culture. It's different today, but it's still, I feel Erskineville's very, very special to me.
Is it very special just because of the boxing, just because of that, or...?
No, the people that I grew up with, I think that, playing football, doing the boxing there, people were always keen to talk to you and ask you questions, particularly the older guys. And when Newtown Rugby League side was put out of the competition, we weren't left with a lot, and the boxing at that time was virtually there for everyone to support. We didn't have football teams, so they were always asking questions, how will he go, who's the next one, and it was a good time, very good time in Erskineville. Did you play a lot of rugby league? I played rugby league, but we used to play AFL on the Saturday league on a Sunday, and my body was better suited for AFL. I was very, very small and very slightly built. But I love rugby league, yeah, really love rugby league. Growing up in that Newtown area, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, at the time a very hard-working, tough, working class kind of area? Very much so, working man district, yes. And now it's become very trendy, very yeah, it's there's the coffee flows there like the Murrumbidgee. It was growing up, never ever heard of coffee. There was plenty of Tszyu and Reese's flowing, but there's more. I think there's more people in the coffee shops than the pubs. The pubs are different too, but they've all been upgraded, and for a while there you used to go past and there was no one in them, and now they've always got a good crowd in there, particularly from Thursday to Sunday, and it's still a good place to live, yeah. So what's the transition been like for Johnny Lewis from that rough and tumble working class background of Newtown and whatnot to trendiness of the area now? Yeah, it's. Do you like it more now, or? Oh no, I like it. I love the old days. So as I said, the trams used to run there, and we get on the trams and sell the papers and go into the hotels, and they were where you got your tips. And look, it was good. As I said, it was hard, but I just my grandmother's place. There was one key for everybody that lived there, and that never left the door. It stayed in the door, and if there was no one home, the key stayed in the door.
Well, it was in the door?
Yeah, just left it in there so that whoever came home first opened and let themselves in, and never...
In the front door, like in the door?
Yeah, stayed in the door. Yeah, and no one ever went in and knocked anything off. It was brilliant. So, like,
was that around? Like a lot of other people did?
Oh, yeah, you didn't lock your cars up or anything. Mm.
Even being a rough and tumble area, people didn't rob each other?
Yeah, not at all. And yeah, even I talk about the fights, and it was like if someone got knocked down, they waited till they got up, or if they didn't want to get up or whatever. But there was no kicking or any of that stuff going on. But the rule was that whoever won the fight would buy the next beer. So might have been a few blokes taking a dive here and there for a free beer.
Were you a kid that got into a lot of trouble as a youth?
No, very lucky. No, I didn't get into any trouble. Not much anyhow. Got a few. We got a few kicks up the backside from different people and whatever, but nothing bad.
Okay. Do you, Brian being a mutual friend of ours, my business partner his name's Alex Prades. Do you know Alex?
Oh, wonderful person. Yeah.
So you've met Alex a few times?
Yes, I have.
Because he's my jiu-jitsu coach as well as being my business partner, and he's obviously like a mentor in that sense to me. But he always speaks in glowing terms of you and the dealings that he's had, either directly with you or through Brian, kind of like through Brian, so to speak. What dealings have you had with Alex? Oh,
not much. When you had the gym there at Cronulla, I'd go up there and I used to watch him, and pardon me, we'd in a few of our sessions, some of his boys joined in, but it didn't take me long to realise that Alex was a very special person. I think he's a credit to the sport, and I'd like to spend a lot more time with him. I think that just a wonderful person.
What are the character traits there that because that's another thing that's always been, not just from Brian and not just from Alex, but from other people that speak to me about you. They always say that to me, like Johnny will figure out the dude that he's talking to pretty quickly. What are the things, like for example with Alex in particular, that if you know him, like what are the traits that you see that you go, no, this guy's a good dude?
I like his humbleness, and quite obviously he's a very competent boxer himself, but he's just he's a caring person, and I think that he's got the ingredients to bring out the best in someone. I think he's working with a few of the football sides, and
he's with Souths at the moment.
Yeah.
Is that your team?
No.
Now, Newtown Jets, obviously.
Yeah, I'm still a Newtown support. I like Souths. They're just over the road, sort of thing. But he's good for them. They got a good side. I've seen them the other week there, and I like the speed of their back line, and I'm sure that Alex will put some backbone into the forwards.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of grappling and that with the guys, and I think any and all, aside from anything that you can use in the game, I think that any of those combat sports, whether it's boxing, kickboxing, any form of grappling, is so paramount to a collision sport. Like,
yeah, well, it's they got to get them big blokes down on the ground, and that's one of the things that with the bigger guys, the more you get them down, the harder it is for them to get up. And,
100%.
And you soon slow them down. So if you can do it with the technique that Alex has got, well, these blokes will... It's not going to win him a comp, but it can certainly make sure that it stops him from being the person that loses them the game
100%.
or whatever. You know, it's a valuable asset for, I think, particularly for the forward pack. But then again, you know, they got big blokes out in the centres and on the wings and that today, so it's good for every player to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. What Newtown Jets? How big of a fan are you of them? And how did, like, do you watch NRL now?
I watch. I always watch NRL. You know, Newtown's playing in a second tier sort of thing. It's not the same, but I still always look to see if they've won. I go to the games at Henson Park. I take a little fella down there and we sit on the hill and we barrack for Newtown. But I can tell you that when Newtown got put out of the competition at the end of 1983, it was like a death in the family. We never got over it.
And they still have a lot of support, in the area?
Well, they're doing all right. They've turned it into like a bit of a entertainment day, and the kids can get on the middle of the field, and they've got a band there and a lot of different things happening. It's it's a fun day.
So you did sign writing for 32 years, from 14 to however old, like that. My maths is terrible, but I'd say what, 40? My maths is terrible. 45 or something.
Yes, yeah.
And then were you full-time coaching thereafter?
Virtually, yes. Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about that transition and what that was like and how that came about?
Yeah, I would have liked to have stayed in the workforce a little bit longer. I liked going to work, and I liked doing what I did. It was more like a redundancy package that saw me leave, but it wasn't a bad time because I was well underway with Kostya's career, so you know, it wasn't that I couldn't go. Some of the poor buggers that were there, they were going to be battling, but myself, I still had a lot to do with the fight game, and but I would have still liked to work. I didn't mind going to work at all.
Something that I see that's kind of prevalent so far in these conversations with you is like things have kind of followed their natural order with you. Like it doesn't seem like you've pushed. I'm not saying you haven't worked hard, but it doesn't seem like you haven't forced the opportunity. Like say for example, you were at the PCYC, then the coach left, and then you started coaching, and that happened almost organically. And then of course you worked very hard, and then you kept going with that. And then when you were working as a signwriter, that job ceased, you know, like naturally, so to speak, and then you were already with Kostya, so the opportunity came. But what I see at the centre of that is like hard work and consistency. Like the hard work, you're there, you're working hard, you're consistent with it, and then the opportunities turn up. Is that a fair assumption?
No, most definitely. You know, it was.
That's just what I see now.
I've been very, very lucky in life. I've met some wonderful people, done some wonderful things, and.
But they probably wouldn't have happened if you weren't working super hard and consistently. Well, like the luck probably wouldn't have, you know what I mean, or you wouldn't be in a position to take advantage of that luck.
I often quote a Jack Gibson quote, and that was that you only take out what you put in, and that's life. I think Jack was great by his simplicity, but I love that because it's so true. If you want to be half-hearted, you'll only take half out. But if you work hard and put a lot in, you'll take a lot out.
How difficult was it for you then, because you're saying you like to work, you like to get up in the morning, go to work, and then go do your boxing in the evening. How difficult was it for you to transition to be full-time with Kostya? Did you miss work? Did you miss the normality of?
I did. I as I said, I liked. I liked. I like to get up early. I've always liked to get up early.
What's early for you? Just so I know.
Well, 5 o'clock, 4:45, I'm up.
4:45, you're up. That's early.
Yeah, and well, you know, it's, when I was sign writing, I could be working in any area, and so I always give myself plenty of time to get to wherever I had to go to, and so I trained my body to always get up early, and I like to go to bed early too, but I sometimes you don't. But yeah, it's I wasn't never afraid of working as a kid. You know, as I say, we were selling papers. I'd done the scoreboard at Erskineville Oval. Used to sell sweets at half time on a big tray going around. So yeah. We had plenty of irons in the fire, but yeah.
So you were always a bit of a grafter, a bit of a entrepreneur, so to speak?
Oh, not an entrepreneur, no.
You weren't an entrepreneur?
No, just, I suppose, mate, we lived in the housing commission there, and we done it tough in life, but we done it great, you know. Great mum, a great dad, good big brother, and we had our little castle there. We loved it, and but you know.
So you grew up in the housing commission apartments in Newtown, in Erskineville.
Yeah,
I'm from Southwest Sydney, so yeah, that area is all Newtown, or all one sort of area for me.
Erskineville's Newtown, you know, Erskineville / Newtown. So.
Yeah. So you were from that region. You grew up in housing commission. You had an older brother. What does your older brother do?
He was in the clerical business, but he's retired.
He's wasn't involved in boxing or anything?
No. He played a lot of football.
Good football player?
He was, yeah.
I have a question. Like Eli does a lot of coaching. I coach as well. Run my gym with Alex, and we do some fair bit of coaching. And maybe you could give some advice to us as well. You know, it's always hard, like, to balance, you know, relationships, family, and whatnot, with just the toll of coaching. And I'm not saying it to you because you already know it better than me for sure, but just maybe to people out there that don't really understand, like, you know, you coach, you're planning stuff, working with stuff, talking to your guys, you know what's happening with your guys all the time, then you're at the sessions, then you go home, then, you know, your mind's on that as well, then you got to travel. What toll did that take on your family or on yourself, and how can young coaches that are coming up, or not so young coaches that are coming up, balance that and deal with it?
Yeah, look, I'd like to think that it didn't take a toll on the family at all. I think they enjoyed what I was doing and whatever. I think I still get on to discipline. I think that discipline, it's not a one-way street. You've got to be disciplined to the core, and so does your athlete. With that, I mean, punctuality. You know, you've always got to try, but it's having hands on, and you might have to say something one day that you might never have to say for a month or whatever. I think the trust, you've got to get your athletes' trust, because, you know, this is, you know, boxing's a very, very hard sport. You know, you can be a punch in 10 seconds away from disaster at any time during a contest. And it's so important that I know that my athlete has been to bed early every night, hasn't done anything to the contrary that can suddenly see him losing or floundering in a fight. And the other thing is that that they believe that, I honestly do believe they can win this fight, and you go with that. A lot of trust from both sides of it all.
We talk about Fenech, we talk about Kostya, Tszyu, I don't know, so many other people, but how many people have you seen come through that could have been a Kostya, Tszyu, could have been a Jeff Fenech, and for whatever reason they weren't?
Look, I think that most that I've had have fulfilled their potential. You speak of Jeff and you speak of Kostya, and we might never see their like in our time again, or we might, but I mean to say it was, at that time it was something very, very special. I can't say that even though someone hasn't won a world title, but they've they've fulfilled their potential to the fullest. Well, that's as good as winning a world title. You know, not everyone can be a world champion.
No, but I'm not talking so much about being world champions and whatnot, but just being in the area that you were in at the time. I guess I asked the question wrong. I didn't explain myself correctly. Was there a lot of people that had come through that couldn't fulfill their potential, that didn't fulfill their potential, that perhaps got involved in other stuff outside of boxing and whatnot?
Oh, undoubtedly there would have been, but I can't sort of pinpoint it. Like, I mean to say, some people suddenly want to suddenly play football and put it all their eggs in one basket with football, whereas they were balancing up between two. I've had a little fella called Paulie Hayward who he played for Newtown, but Paul was could have made it to the top in boxing certainly as well, but yeah, I could say Paul missed out on a bit. You know, he got into a little bit of trouble, but he was a wonderful puncher, and but southpaw and almost unbeatable, you'd say. Very gutsy and superbly fit.
What kind of now you've obviously, just by the nature of what you do community work, like you do work in the community, but are you involved in a lot of other community programs? Like your reputation speaks of it as if it is, which it is, but outside of the boxing realm, have you involved in other community work?
I think many years ago, through Brian Chickamore, who is an ex-Newtown footballer and a detective, we started a young offenders program. We used to go through the jail systems, and we'd do some sparring, and which later was put down to just pad work, and then we'd like have a barbecue and spend a few good hours with the prisoners and so forth, and we'd take some, at various times we'd take some young offenders in with us, and we thought we had a pretty good record there with those kids. Like, they soon found out that it's not the best place in the world to be, and they were able to change direction where they were going. I really like that. Haven't done that for a long time, but I'm a strong believer in that. You know, different charities and that we like to. I've got a couple of friends that have got in different ones where I'm a patron or whatever. It's important that we do those things. We're in a position to do them.
Absolutely. With the now with the Akaway, am I saying his name correctly?
Yeah.
What's next for him? What titles? What things? What's he chasing? What are you doing? How many hours a week are you involved with him?
I'll just wait till he starts his preparation. They'll get an opponent. Michael and his brother will work that out. I always have a look at what's on offer. The fellow we beat just a week ago, he was a former world champion and an Italian kid, very, very tough and knew plenty of ring savvy. We've raised the bar now, so we've got to keep that going. It's very important that we don't drop below that level, but we go above it and really see just how much Bilal's got, because, as I say, I believe that he can go all the way, and I do think he's an excitement machine. I think he can put bums on seats. Big punches always do, and but hopefully they'll get someone that's another testing time for him, and hopefully more so that he can fulfill.
How important is the management of the fighter, bringing him through his career and that?
Oh, it's everything. Yeah, there's a ladder to climb, and it's important to go up a rung at a time. Maybe sometimes you got to jump 2 rungs, but remember that always that the boxer is the most important person in the equation, and his health and well-being is paramount. So you got to really try and make sure that you get it right.
Well, we're just not running out of time. We can talk all day for sure. I love hearing the stories. I know that it's not. I know that you don't always do this kind of thing, and we're both really glad that you did this for us. And you came in and gave us some of your time. And we're very thankful for Brian Doyle putting us in contact. I can't thank you enough. For me, just speaking to you and just meeting you properly was a real honour for me, to be honest with you. And yeah, thank you very much for coming in. Eli,
the same thing. Been a pleasure to meet you. It's been great to have you on the show and that, and really appreciate your time.
I love your work. I think it's terrific, and all I can say is that I'm honoured to be here with you, and it's any time at all. Beautiful.
Just before we go, do you have do you want to tell us what's happening next, who you got next? Because from what you tell us, you are making another Ali-like return to the ring. So what's next for you? Where can people see some of your work?
Well, we got the Johnny Lewis fight series #2 coming on at Star City on St Patrick's Day. Starts at 12:30. We've got quite a few Irish fighters boxing, a few of the Australians, and we've got a couple of kids over from Canada. Hopefully it's a good program. Adam Watt and Chris Carmen have worked tirelessly to get the good programs there, and we're trying to get the fight game up and running. So that's our next one, and we'll just see what happens after the St Patrick's Day fight night, and hopefully we can get a really good one going again in May. So I'm keeping a little bit busy, but I'd like to maybe get one more fighter before it's all over, Red Rover.
No, beautiful, awesome. We got here a shirt for you. Just say thank you for coming. Eli can explain a little bit more about the shirt. This is a jersey from a team that he coaches, and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, our gym, sponsors it. So does Grange TV, which is this podcast that you're on. So this is for you. Just if you want to grab it. Eli, do you want to talk a little bit about the program? That's Eli's program that he runs, by the way. So
it's just a rugby team from we compete every year in the LS7s, which is up there at Coffs Harbour. There are a bunch of Indigenous girls that we get from all over Australia who come together for a weekend and play as a team and that. And it's been really successful the last couple of years. And this year we've been lucky enough to have Aboriginal Pathways here at TAFE, Gracie Smeet and Grange TV jump on as sponsors to make it happen and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just something that's really important to us, giving back to the community and that. And I know it's important to Gracie, Smeaton and Grange and Aboriginal Pathways as well. So just a little token to say thank you. And I'm sure if you wear it around, that some people will see it and notice there.
When that flag's flying, mate, I'm very proud to wear it. I'm very proud of our Indigenous kids. Growing up around at Erskineville, Newdown, I've been fortunate to know some great Indigenous people. I went and helped launch Joey Williams's book a couple of weeks ago with Garth Wood. I'm very proud of what Joey's done, and it's a great book for the young kids to get out and read it. It's he's been very unselfish and told the truth, and it might be a good thing for the young kids to read it. And wonderful young man, Joey Williams.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be.
Thank you very much once again, Johnny, and thank you for your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.